So now that we've deployed high availability for the client access servers using DNS round robin, let's deploy high availability for our mailbox servers using a database availability group. I'm logged onto my domain controller here, which is where I'm going to do the first few steps of this process to create the database availability group. Now, because a DAG relies on the underlying failover clustering feature of Windows Server, we do need to install that feature on our Exchange servers. And we can do that remotely using PowerShell from the domain controller. We don't actually have to log into the Exchange servers to do this step. So we can just use install Windows feature with the computer name parameter. And first I'll install failover clustering to my EBC EX1 server. And I want to include all sub features and include the management tools as well, just to be sure. So that was nice and quick, and we'll just repeat that for my other Exchange server as well, EBC EX2. And we can let that run. We also need to prepare a server to be the file share witness for our database availability group. Now, every DAG needs a file share witness, and in a real world production scenario, that might be just another member server within your Active Directory environment that the Exchange administrators have full control over and can use for that file share witness role. In this test lab environment, and in fact in some smaller production environments in the real world, you may find it necessary to use your domain controller as the file share witness. So obviously in our test lab scenario here, the only other available server I've got is the domain controller. And this is supported but not recommended for use in real world production scenarios. Now we need to make sure that a specific set of Exchange permissions are in place on that file share witness. And what we need to do is add the Exchange Trusted Subsystem group into the administrators group. Now, if this was just a member server in the forest, we would be able to add it into the local administrators group on that server. Because this is a domain controller, which doesn't have a local administrators group, we have to use the domain administrators group. So I'm going to go to my Active Directory Administrative Center. And do a search for administrators. And let's add in the Exchange Trusted Subsystem group. So in effect what we're doing there is we're giving the Exchange servers, the Exchange server computer accounts, admin rights on the domain controller for the purposes of that file share witness role. Next, we need to pre-stage the cluster name object. Now, the cluster name object is simply a computer account in Active Directory that is used by the DAG. Now, it is required that you manually pre-stage this cluster name object when you're creating a database availability group in Exchange Server 2013. It doesn't really matter where we put it, we can just put it in any organizational unit or container. At this stage we need to give our DAG a name, so I'm going to call mine EBC DAG. Just jumping back into the properties, go to the security tab, so jump down to extensions and in security, and we need to give at least one of our Exchange server computer accounts full control over this cluster name object, this computer account for the DAG name. So let's change this to computers, and we'll add EBC EX1 and give it that full control. And the last thing we need to do for this computer account is disable it. Okay, so having done that, we can now go ahead and create the database availability group itself. So I'm going to stay on my domain controller and just open the Exchange Admin Center. And navigate to mail.exchangebootcamp.com/ECP, which is my Exchange Admin Center. I don't need to be logged into the Exchange server or one of the Exchange servers to do this, because this Exchange Admin Center is just a web-based console. I can just do it from a workstation or from my domain controller, or really anything else that's connected with a browser. So here in the Exchange Admin Center, we go down to the Servers section and select Database Availability Groups. I don't have any database availability groups in my organization as yet, so let's go ahead and create a new one. We need to give the database availability group a name, and that name should match the cluster name object that we've pre-staged, so EBC DAG. We do need to specify the witness server. My witness server is EBC DC1. We also need to specify the witness directory. I'm just going to put mine on the C drive and just say fsw-ebc DAG. And now we need to give the DAG an IP address. So this just needs to be an available IP address on the network that the DAG members are connected to. And now we have created the DAG. Let's just have a look at the results so far. We've created a DAG called EBC DAG with a witness server of EBC DC1. But what we haven't done is add any members to the database availability group. So all we've done is create the DAG object itself, and it contains a little bit of configuration information, but it has no members and there's no database replication going on at the moment. So click this icon here to manage DAG membership. And I'm just going to add EBC EX1, my first Exchange server at this time. Click to save that change. Now that process is complete. It took about 2 minutes on my server. It may take a little longer. It may take a little longer if you have a slower system. And what we've now achieved is we've created a database availability group, and we've added our first DAG member. Now let's just jump into the properties of the DAG. And we can see our witness server and witness directory is still there, and our first database availability group member has been created. So let's back out of that. Now obviously a DAG with only one member is not going to be a very good high availability solution. So now let's go ahead and add our additional DAG members, which in this case is only one additional DAG member, EBC EX2. But in the real world, this could be another 2, 3, 4, up to 15 additional DAG members to bring it to a total of 16, which is the maximum number of DAG members you can have. So that didn't take long. And we'll just wait for this view to refresh. We can see we've got 2 member servers here. And everything's looking pretty good. So now I will log on to one of my Exchange servers. And on that Exchange server, I'm going to open the Failover Cluster Manager. Now you can have a look using Failover Cluster Manager at the results of your DAG creation, but it's not recommended to actually use Failover Cluster Manager to do any management of your Exchange server database availability group. So it's more of a look but don't touch kind of situation here. We can see that the EBC DAG failover cluster has been created. We can see that both of the Exchange servers are nodes. There's nothing in the roles list here because even though Exchange makes use of the underlying failover cluster for its database availability group, it's not actually a clustered application or a cluster aware application. So you won't see any clustered roles appearing here as you would for, say, for example, clustered file or print servers or for clustered Hyper-V servers. We can also see that a cluster network has been created, and that's got those two interfaces on it. And there's also, similar to the roles not having any clustered roles visible, there's also no clustered storage required for an Exchange database availability group. I will also point out here that you can see the file share witness as a cluster resource that has been created, the cluster name and the cluster IP address. Now if we were to reboot our file share witness, which I won't do because it's also my domain controller, but in a real world situation, if that was just another member server and that server was down for maintenance, such as security patching, then this cluster resource may go offline. But you don't need to worry about it. You don't need to come into the failover cluster manager and try and force it back online at any stage, because the DAG will attempt to bring that resource back online periodically until it is able to. So once again, you can look but don't touch basically in this failover cluster manager and see the results of your DAG creation and how that relates to the underlying failover cluster. So now that we've actually created the DAG, in the next lesson we're going to take a look at managing our database copies.